Have you wrestled with imposter syndrome? Excessive and unsubstantiated self doubt coupled with an uncanny lack of confidence? I'm your host, Betty Danowitz. Listen as I interview highly successful individuals about their experience with this imposter syndrome and how it manifests itself in their lives in this If You Ask Betty podcast series dealing with imposter syndrome. Hi, Kassy. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Hi. Hey, Betty. Thanks for having me today.
Kassy, tell us about you.
Oh, we're going to go straight at it. I love it. I am a person who loves helping people love what they do. And a very long time ago, when I was going through studies and couldn't decide, maybe even had imposter syndrome way back then, what I should do or who I was going to be, I found myself loving teaching and helping people get to know themselves better so that they could work better, live better, and do the things. And then I lived in the Silicon Valley in California at that time, and I landed in a technical job. And that then turned into teaching people how to use technology. But because I have this love for connecting with people, for me, all of those jobs teaching people various technologies was always about getting to know people and helping them be happy. And that is, where I'm at today and the kind of messages that I'm now sharing with people. How do I still love what I do, even though I'm working alone often in my own home or in a remote office, and I'm supposed to use all this technology that I have to learn and I'm supposed to do a great job and still be happy. How do I do all of that? Because somehow, as extroverted as I am, and maybe I'm not the person who loves technology. I don't know that I've ever said that out loud, given my whole career is like, use this tech and do this.
I mean, I won't tell anyone.
I like how people are happy when something works. And I like for things to work. And I think technology is cool. I think people are way cooler. And so I love it when that happens. And that's where I'm at today and what I'm really focused on as I continue to move forward in my work and in my career.
What would you say are your biggest accomplishments in life and in work?
Well, when I think about biggest accomplishments, the very first one that comes to me is, being a mom and the miracle of that. And also just I can't even believe that that's part of my life a lot of times. That for sure is number one. And then of course, my relationships with my family and friends are the most important things to me. And especially my partner, my husband. And then I go to, and I'm super proud of the work that I have done, what I have done to create my work. I'm very proud of it. And I don't talk about it enough. And I know you're asking me this on purpose. It's great because when I went to university, virtual training consultant wasn't on the list of things you might consider doing, and to be honest, it seems like to this day, what I want to do isn't exactly on the list either. Like even in the way that I am growing into this professional speaking space, the way that I want to do it and the way that I envision being successful in it isn't on the list of the way that you do it. It sort of seems to be the way that my whole career has been, but I'm quite proud of the success that I've had. And I do love looking at that and spending more time there because given the topic of what we are speaking of today, I do think it is probably the secret. It's the secret sauce to being able to move forward and get over imposter syndrome tendencies.
So you've written a book or two.
Yeah, I didn't mention that. So I'm kind of lumping that into my career. I'm super proud of the books. I love talking. I have a degree in talking. I tried to talk the books, but it didn't work. They made me write them. So yes, I'm proud of the fact that I did those.
Yeah, and you
can't wait to write another one.
You have two, or you've written two and an updated tell us the details.
Yeah, so I published my very first book in 2015 with ATD, Interact and Engage, 50 plus activities for virtual training, meetings, and webinars. And then in 2022, producing virtual training, meetings, and webinars came
Mm-hmm.
along
Mm-hmm.
because we that work in the virtual training space are always talking about producers. And then we say, well, yeah, you should totally have a producer. And I decided that we need to have an entire book devoted to why you totally need a producer.
Makes
And so
sense.
my book, as far as I know, is still the only book on virtual training production out there, which is very cool. And then in 2023, and next year later, we decided, because I did actually co-author that first book with my husband now, and we decided we needed to update that book and add 25 more activities, given how much had changed as a
Mm-hmm.
result of, our world going so fully remote in 2020. So I've written two titles, but the third one is a second edition on the first book. And advice to anyone out there, when you do a second edition, you should just know going into it, you're actually just writing another book. So there's a part of me
Yeah.
that thinks I should have just written another book, and then I'd be like, I have 3 books.
Well, I still say you have 3 books, so that's all that counts.
Okay, thank you. I'll take it.
Okay, you're welcome. So, okay, so what would, if I were to ask other people, what would other people say about you?
Oh, they say
What would
wonderful
others
things
say?
about me. Why are you making me say this out loud?
Because that's what we do here at
Hmm.
the Imposter Syndrome series.
I think other people see me as dynamic and kind and engaging and sweet. Little do they know.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughtful, successful. I think they see me as highly successful, and that am a person who is a leader in the learning and development world, and that I have worked for organizations and made a difference, and also forged my way forward as an entrepreneur, solopreneur. And then I'm successfully running my own business, and I do great things, and I have an amazing brand, and that everything looks so good for me. That's what I think people say and think.
Yeah,
And they do tell me that. And,
yeah.
yeah, I thank people for telling me that. And I am very, very appreciative and honored that they
Mm,
see it. And I work very hard on accepting it for myself. And I am better today at accepting that, and saying, thank you, and letting it land, and
mm-hmm.
focusing on what I'm going to call, because I'm reading a book right now and I love it. It's the gap versus the gain. And I keep texting you stuff about it, as you know.
Yes.
Living in the gains, living in the gains and honoring them. The work that you have done makes you happy and fuels you to move forward and stop comparing yourself to others, and importantly, what you don't yet have.
Mm. Words of wisdom. We weren't even looking for that, and it just came right out of you. Look at that. So, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your accomplishments in life and work and what others would say about you. What has been your experience with imposter syndrome?
Oh, I have been exploring that deeply in the last year and a half as a learning and development professional leader. I went on a journey to learn a new thing, to grow my skills, and to go into something that's been a dream for a very long time that I've been quite afraid of. And I had nothing but support around me, because I work in learning and development. I was like, yes, go learn, go learn. And I hated it. I hated learning. So what
I
happened to
understand that
me?
completely.
I hated
I'm
how
the
I didn't
worst.
already know it.
I am the
Yeah.
worst participant. In fact, if you and I are in a class together, that facilitator is doomed.
Doomed.
Just doomed.
Doomed. I
Yeah.
mean, actually, no,
Okay.
I'm
Go
super
ahead.
great. No, I know I'm really good in class. I listen. I'm really good in the live class. All the homework and the outside work, I don't do,
Yeah.
because I like to talk, right? Not read.
Right.
uh, but I do force myself. But no, I'm great. I'm a great student. I just that when it came to not being good at what I was being asked to do, I I didn't look at it as an opportunity. At least about a year and a half ago, I didn't. I didn't do what I tell others to do.
Mm.
I
Mm-hmm.
I went and said, I'm not good enough. And that's obviously why I'm not able to do this. Like my default setting was I'm not good enough. And I've been going deep on why that is my default reaction since paying more close attention to that, given how important this was to me this year.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I default to I'm not good enough? Where does this come from? How is this playing out in my life in other ways? And I don't want to live like this anymore. Like in short, I got sick of myself.
Mm.
And I'm like, I can't keep doing this. And I've discovered a few things and I'm working on them actually.
Mm.
Mm.
So when do you still have imposter syndrome? Does that
Oh
still?
yeah, I think it's a daily thing. I think it is a daily choice to I recently heard Mel Robbins talk about this actually in on her feed. I get her through Instagram, so you have to wake up and make an active choice to say, "All right, I'm on top of this today,"
Mm-hmm.
because you know I'm not. And then when you're not on top of it halfway through the day, you go, "It's all right. I've not been on top of it, but I'm going to be on top of it now. I'm making an active effort. It's not like I figured it out and now I've got a plan and now it's gone forever."
Right.
It's actually every day, and I have like things that I'm specifically doing. The questions that you asked me today are some of those things, focusing on what at the end of like one practice that I have adopted recently working with a coach is at the end of each of my work days, which that's an interesting thing too, since I work for myself and work from home. When is the end of the workday? Exactly.
Mm.
Mm.
Your guess
Let
is
me
as good as
rephrase that.
mine.
Around 5 p.m. Eastern every day, randomly chose that just now, I will focus on my wins for the day. And that might be connected to the work that I'm doing, but it also just might be connected to my life. Like I did a workout in the morning instead of the evening or something. I don't know. And I feel like that was a win.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to, I am actively going through what my wins are. And what's kind of interesting is that each time I do that, I pop out of any kind of bad mood I might have been in.
I like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when you're having an episode of imposter syndrome, how does it manifest itself? So for some people it's like perfectionism or overachieving or self-sabotage. What is it that you experience? What happens to you?
Usually it's brought on by not getting something that I want. Like maybe the client says no,
Mm, mm-hmm.
or I didn't get accepted to speak, maybe. Or maybe I am lost in looking at what everyone else's accomplishments are. And I get like envious of that I haven't done that. And then what
Sure.
ends up happening is that I go immediately to, oh, it's because I'm not good enough. And then I'll usually just back away and like, get really down on myself, which is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I get really down and then I get really kind of negative, and then
Mm,
I just don't work at all. Like I don't overwork. I self-sabotage instead, I think. And
yeah.
like and go look at like, oh, what's the latest ridiculous like thing I could watch on Netflix? Like I'm really like, oh, maybe if I just go watch just one episode, then I can
Mm,
stop thinking about it and then I'll do that. And then I end up losing a whole hour of the middle of the
sometimes
day
more.
sitting on the couch, sometimes more.
Yeah.
I was being conservative. Yeah.
Yeah, you were. I'm
Hmm.
tracking with you. So I just want to agree with you in that happens. Yeah.
Right. We're just like mindlessly scrolling on my phone on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
looking for memes. Hmm.
Yeah. So
Mm.
what you talked about a few triggers. Is there anything in particular that you find like is the biggest trigger for you, or it will flare up imposter syndrome super fast? Like what really sets you off?
I think I have, it's when I see other people doing things that I think I should have done or I should have been able to do. Like, why do they have
Mm-hmm.
that and I haven't done that yet? Or how come I can't get that? and I'm being careful with my language right now because I'm trying not to even give it the language that I have for so long given it, which is the I'm not good enough language.
Mm-hmm.
They like her better, they like him better, he has better opportunities than me. I think that the trigger is often when I find myself comparing myself to someone else
Mm-hmm.
and their accomplishments, and then just getting envious of it. And
Yeah.
I really, you and I spoke about this before about trying to look at that like it's a gift, it's a cue, like, oh,
It's a data point.
which on it's a data point, and like in some level that does work, but I've found since you and I spoke about this before, I think it was about a year ago actually,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that I'm trying to focus more on where I have been and all that I have accomplished and myself. I'm trying to look towards me and what and who I am and what I'm working on and what I want for my life. Uh, Rather than what the rest of the world is doing, or importantly, other people that are in my field are doing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's about, this is the biggest probably discovery that I've made in the last couple of months, and I'm really working hard on, is the concept of internal validation versus external validation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
constantly seeking external validation doesn't lead anywhere positive for me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that whole seeing somebody else who does something similar to what you do, getting an opportunity that you didn't get for
right.
whatever reason, fill in the blank. It doesn't really matter what the reason was. That can make you feel, I want that. Why didn't I get that? And then you go back to, well, it's because it's not that the work I didn't do isn't good enough. It quickly becomes, I'm not good enough.
Yes. Yeah.
You
And I
you
and I'm
you
tired of
attach that
myself going
to
there,
you.
to
Mm-hmm.
my value. And so learning to focus on my own self-worth, my goals, where I've been, where I'm at, and how that will lead to where I want to go, gets rid of that
Mm-hmm.
comparison monster,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a monster. So
Yeah.
when you think about the way that imposter syndrome manifests itself in your life, you talked about, it triggers you through comparison. It kind of turns into some level of envy, which then turns into internal facing self sabotage. When you think about that, are there other contributing factors? And here's what I mean about that. We've talked in other episodes about triggers, but what I want to know is there something about you that makes this imposter syndrome phenomenon happen? Something that happened to you, something that you experienced in the past. Is there something else that could be contributing?
Oh, probably. Are we going to call in the therapist at this point?
Yes, yeah, this is free therapy right now.
Absolutely. My whole life, my whole view on life and the way things are. And I'm not going to point any fingers. I'm very much about responsibility about my own life right now. But the role models, let's say, that I've had around me, and it's that external validation.
Mm-hmm.
Do this so that you can be seen like this, act like this, and then you'll get this. It yeah, and then none of that ever giving me true belief in myself, none of it ever being me focusing. And what's funny is that the success that I'm proud of, that I mentioned to you about my career, is 100% me saying I'm going to do me in my way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm broken some rules in terms of how you run your own business. I haven't done it exactly by the way you're supposed to do it. Um, Probably one really sort of easy way to describe that is that, when you start searching about your business, you look into like your logo and your business name and all the things, and then you start looking at what color and blah, and then you can get into the rat hole of what colors mean, and blah, and pink or coral and peaches, all the colors I love so much in that hue, range of hue,
Mm-hmm.
is for health and wellness and beauty. It's not for high tech and
Mm-hmm.
human, stuff that I do now, human communication stuff. And it's for an audience of women. That's what but I'm like, but I love pink and I work in high tech and I don't only have an audience of women.
Right.
And so I used it anyway. and and people say things about it, and then it makes me stand out, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And so, more of that focusing on me and what I need uh, is where the success has happened, and where I do not feel an ounce of imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I stand tall in that salmon color.
And you look great in it.
And I like the aqua too, as you know, and I'm
Yeah.
leaning into the aqua side for the
Yeah.
speaking business, because I love that too, and it deserved equal attention.
Sure.
Partly maybe too why we're so connected,
Uh, Likely
because of color.
because of
Yeah,
color. That's why.
yeah. But
Anything else that you would think is a contributing factor?
I feel like this is in our culture. We here in the U.S., it's a bit about what we expect of women.
Mm-hmm.
I feel, and I'm not saying that I don't think men have imposter syndrome. Certainly they do. But I think a lot of my personal imposter syndrome has to do with what I think growing up, what my role is as a woman in this world,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman working in the industries that I've worked in, and what I do. It's impacted me. And I don't know that I have a whole lot of data or detail on that. I just know that I think that right now.
Sure. Does it
Hmm.
make you feel like you're doing too much or you're not doing enough or you should be doing this and not that?
The last one, that I am
Okay.
not doing it in the way it's supposed to be done. I'm too cute. I laugh too much. And hold up, I giggle too much. I'm too pretty. I'm not pretty enough. I'm too large. I'm too small.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wear
Yeah.
heels. You might fall off the stage. Why aren't you wearing heels? They look better.
Sure.
None of that has anything to do with what I'm talking about or what I want to accomplish. And those things, I've allowed them in my life to deeply affect me. And I think they play into where the sources of this imposter syndrome will play out.
Well,
You
sure,
know, when
because you're
when
you're
you get that
doubting.
feedback, yeah. When you're a
Go ahead.
public speaker like you and I are, and somebody writes down on a form that you giggled too much, how does that? What blows my mind is that my husband just laughs at it, and it would not affect if somebody said it about him, which he wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
get that feedback, though, is the thing. But he would just be like, that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't accept it. But for me, that feedback came to me at solid maybe 9 years ago. I still remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It
I'm
does.
letting
It
it
has an
go.
impact. It has an impact. Even feedback from non-player characters in our lives, right? Which that person was, because they are absolutely not part of your story. Is definitely it impacts us. I mean, I also got feedback that my jokes aren't even funny,
I remember that. I remember you actually texted me that and showed me that. And I thought, oh, interesting.
and I'm freaking hilarious. What are they talking
I
about?
mean,
Those people.
they're so obviously wrong. And actually, when you told me that you'd received that, my reaction as a person who is, your friend, but also not
Hmm.
you, I was like, ridiculous, delete.
Yeah, delete.
But no, you're holding on to it. Of course you
Well,
are. Yeah.
but so are you, Giggly.
Of course. I know. I
And you
know.
better keep giggling because it's one of the cutest things about you.
Right. I know. It is. It's good.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep
Yeah.
telling jokes. See, you just giggled, and I'm going to keep telling jokes.
Yes.
Um, all right, last question, if you're ready.
Mhm.
Why did you want to be a part of this imposter syndrome project?
I do not know a single person in my life who's not engaged by this topic in any setting, at work, on the weekend, going to get a coffee. People want to talk about this, and a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
struggle with this in so many different ways. Or just, and I think that it comes up a lot now because we're in the time that we are in now, people are seeking connection and belonging. We have been
Mm.
lonely. We've become increasingly isolated. And when you are in your own head that way, or maybe even physically on your own like that, that imposter monster starts knocking hard. sitting down next to you at the couch, right? And being right there. And so I think we just need each other right now. And I want to talk about it. I want to be better about it for myself. And I want to share about it because every time I talk about it with people, I learn new things. And then we support each other and we get stronger through that. We stop acting like that in our heads and treating ourselves poorly, because ultimately we do have control over it. And I love this focusing on what I've done so far and how good that feels. If you actively sit down and write down the exercise I went through that was transformational for me, so I wrote down my own timeline, which I had done for slides and presentations before, but I went down more specifically. And then after I wrote it down and I made it all pretty, as I would with pink and aqua in there, I then shared it with someone and I said, let me walk you through it. And as I walked through it, she noticed how excited and full of energy I was from the late 90s when I began my career all the way up till about 2020 when I started really changing my direction. And I was super excited and confident and happy. And then when I got up to 2020, this is where all the unknown things started happening. Like, yes, the business grew and there was all kinds of great things, but now I'm doing all sorts of other stuff as a result of those key learnings. And I'm very nervous and I don't know what's happening. And she said, can you stop for a moment? And I went, yeah, sure, happy to. Because I was all tongue-tied and what comes next, you know? And then she said, do you hear what just happened? And I go, well, yeah, I've already been through all that other stuff. I was really good at all of it. I'm super great. Look, I've got great logos. And she goes, exactly. And she's like, tell me more about those things. And then every time I would tell her more about a successful thing, I naturally went into what I want to do next in a happy, energetic, and hopeful way, rather than I wish I was a different person than I am and I don't know how to get there kind of way.
Sure.
Like looking inside and honoring what I have done and where I have been is just so, it's literally affirming, right? Because it's the truth and it's fact and it was of my doing that those successes happened. And that feels very powerful and happy. And it gives you the fuel that you need to take that risk into the unknown, which is where the imposter syndrome, where you become vulnerable to that. So sometimes I'm vulnerable again and then I step back. And that's why I'm doing my wins every day, because they help me to continue moving forward. And I love that. I've learned that by communicating with people and people telling me to read books. And, you know, so that's why I want to talk about it, because I learn more every time I do. And I learn more from every guest that you have come on here, and you as well.
Yeah. Well, we're so grateful that you did. So thank you so much, Kassy LaBorie, for sharing your experience with us. Thanks to the listeners. I hope you will continue with this series to hear more stories about dealing with imposter syndrome. So many amazing people deal with this every day, and sharing their stories helps them and you feel less alone. Be sure to follow If You Ask Betty on LinkedIn and YouTube for more episodes and resources about imposter syndrome. Oh, and tell your friends, hit that share button so that they also know that they are not alone. Peace out.